Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, so Football Talk here. The first round of the playoffs is in the books, and Super Wildcard Weekend, as it shall be called from now on until forever, did not disappoint whatsoever. No games were decided by more than 12 points, and really all of them were in the balance until the fourth quarter. As always, timestamps for the individual matchups are linked down below, and at the end, I will preview the Divisional Round games. Once again, make sure to check out all my social media outlets down below in the description, and my page also footballtalk.com for more content. But now let's break down what happened over the weekend. First up, with the Indianapolis Colts at the Buffalo Bills. After finishing the regular season with a 13-3 record, their best since 1991, the Bills were hosting a playoff game in Buffalo for the first time in 25 years. While the Colts took care of business in Week 17, but actually needed some help from these Bills, hammering the Dolphins in the regular season finale to sneak into the playoffs as the 7th seed. The Colts on paper didn't match up great with the Bills because of how much single high coverages they had started to run this season and how effective Buffalo was against those. But Indianapolis actually blitzed Josh Allen a lot more than usual early on and got hits on the quarterback or forced him to move. More importantly, they forced the Bills to start from their own 8 on average through the first half, while the Colts offense moved the ball with good second effort runs from Jonathan Taylor and a lot of crossing routes by rookie wide receiver Michael Pittman. Josh Allen had put together one strong drive with a ridiculous throw down the seams to Stephon Diggs, and then a really odd touchdown where it looked like a designed quarterback run, and then as he was getting pulled down, kind of flipped it to a wide open Dawson Knox in the end zone from a couple of yards out. But after an early field goal and Jonathan Taylor punching in the touchdown from a yard away, it looked like the Colts might take a commanding lead in this one heading into the locker room, as they were set up with first and goal inside the Buffalo 5, but then had 3 runs stuffed, and despite losing yardage on the toss play, they went for it on 4th down, which they couldn't convert with the ball going off the hands of Pittman on another crosser where he was actually open, as the linebacker didn't really run with him. But that gave the Bills a chance to put together a 2-minute drive, which they got 2 tremendous sideline grabs from their rookie wide receiver Gabriel Davis, and then got a defensive lineman to jump on 4th and 3, before Allen kept the ball in a zone replay and scored from 5 yards away, to all of a sudden take a 14-10 lead heading into the break. I also have to point out 2 big plays down the field on the ball by Micah Hyde that helped the Bills create a couple of stops around midfield, and a drop on an easy dump off over the middle by Jonathan Taylor, where he took his eyes off the ball too early, that could have certainly turned the game in the favor of the visitors. Buffalo added a field goal to start the second half to make this a touchdown difference, while Rodrigo Blankenship on the other side banged a chip shot field goal off the upright at the end of Indy's 14-play drive. Plus, after a couple of nice runs for Zach Moss, at the end of which he got hurt, and that could be an issue for the Bills going forward, Allen fired a ball downfield to Diggs, running right by TJ Carey off play action for a 35-yard score, where all the quarterback needed to do is hold the free safety in the middle of the field and then lay it out in front for his receiver. However, the Colts got a big run each from Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor for about 50 combined yards, plus a couple of catches for Zach Pascal and shallow crosses of those mesh concepts that they were running so much, to get back into the end zone and make this a one-score game again, even though Taylor was stuffed on the 2-point try following an offside penalty when they were lining up from the PAT. A 54-yard field goal by rookie kicker Tyler Bass extended this to double digits again for Buffalo after some work for Diggs and Beasley, but once more Indy quickly went down the field with a couple of chunk plays, and then on the 5th snap, Jack Doyle was wide open on a wheel route off switch releases, where he was left completely uncovered as the corner carried the outside receiver down the post, and the linebacker in the flats didn't really turn with it either. Plus, Rivers hit Doyle again for the 2-pointer to make the score 27-24 all of a sudden. And while the Bills made it into opposing territory next, and it looked like they were in control of this game, Allen was too loose with the ball and couldn't get away from a second sack attempt, which he fumbled the ball, and while one of the linemen did recover it, it cost him about 25 yards and he had to punt it back to Indy before the 2-minute warning. The Colts overcame 2 4th downs, once on another second effort run from Taylor from short yardage, and then on 4th and 10 to Zach Pascal on another crosser, even though on review you saw pretty clearly that Jordan Poyer had ripped the ball out just as Pascal's knee had come off the ground, and the whole situation was messed up, with Sean McDermott having to call a timeout to even initiate review, but the refs then giving the timeout back to Buffalo, even though that's only possible in a booth review. So really poor job all around by that crew. But thankfully that's not the big story coming out of the weekend, because when Indy got to a Hail Mary attempt on another 4th down, the pass was knocked down in front of the goal line with zeros on the clock to finally give Bills Mafia another play of victory to celebrate. The Bills certainly looked a little shaky in the first half, as Josh Allen and his receivers were a little off, and Philip Rivers was dealing against the secondary, while Indianapolis had the upper hand in the trenches. Buffalo had chances to put this one away early in the second half, but they let the Colts hang around with 2 quick drives to cut it to a field goal difference respectively, and in the end, that miss by Blankenship to start the second half ended up being the decisive factor. The second side of the game was the LA Rams at the Seattle Seahawks, and it's always fun to get these divisional matchups in the playoffs again. These two NFC West foes split the season series home and home, with both defenses setting the tone in those matchups, and if the Rams wanted to win this game, it would have to be with that defense and run game controlling the matchup, with backup quarterback John Wolford in, and Jared Goff on the sideline as more of an emergency option as well, after he just had surgery on his broken thumb. And that was the same story in this one, as we saw 6 punts with a combined 2 first downs on those possessions, as the Rams defensive line got after Russ constantly, and the Hawks were all over those boots and stuff like that called by Sean McVay, to go with one long drive for the Rams, where John Wolford got hit to the head by Jamal Adams, and he had to be taken to a local hospital because of some neck injury. Hopefully he's fine soon. But that put Jared Goff into the game for the rest of the afternoon, as both teams added field goals after that, with a deep punt from the Rams territory setting up Seattle at midfield already, and Cooper Kupp bailing out his quarterback on a badly underthrown slot fade, where it could have resulted in a touchdown if there was a better throw. And the defense was first to get into the end zone as well, as the Seahawks tried to throw a little slip screen with DK Metcalf, and rookie receiver Freddie Swain did a horrendous job of setting the block on Darius Williams, who stepped in front of the pass and took it back to the house for a pick 6. He has been a thorn in Russ's eyes this season, with 2 interceptions in the first meeting, a potential pick 6 dropped in the second one, and now taking this one to the house. However, then both offenses started waking up a little, as Seattle would fall with a touchdown of their own, where Russell Wilson escaped the pocket and DK Metcalf turned a simple square in to a corner out almost, running right by the secondary for a 51-yard score, and then Cam Akers had a 44-yard catch and run to set up his own rushing touchdown from 5 yards away on LA's side. The Rams forced one more stop after that and then ran down the final 1.5 minutes to go into the locker room up 20-10, while the Seahawks were 0 for 5 on third downs in the first half. DJ Reed just got slowed down by the kicker to start the second half, which kept him from likely taking the kickoff back to the house, but he still set up Seattle's offense at the opposing 40, leading to another 50-plus yard field goal for Jason Myers, who is still perfect on the season, an incredible feat by him individually. While the Rams answered with a pretty nice return on their side, Duran Reed got his second sack of the game on third down to get them off the field right away again, and would see 5 straight 3-and-outs altogether to start the second half, with Aaron Donald probably saving a long touchdown to DK Metcalf, who had a couple of steps on Jalen Ramsey on a deep post as the star defensive tackle just got to Russ in time as he let it fly, and Goff showed issues with delivering the ball accurately because of his thumb injury. And while the Rams finally picked up another first down, and the Seahawks got their first third down conversion of the day finally as well, Russ was nearly picked twice, and then both teams had to punt again, as the two defenses continued to swarm, before McVay started riding Cam Akers and allowed him to build on his Rams rookie record for scrimmage yards in a playoff game, setting up an easy kick and making this a 2-score difference again. Both teams went 3-and-out once more, but then as DJ Reed picked up a punt late and tried to make something happen, Samson Ebukam punched the ball out as he was going to the ground, and after more physical running from Akers and Malcolm Brown, Goff laid it out there for Robert Woods, who was all alone on a cross-off play action as the Seahawks were completely sucked in on the run. Russ picked up a big chunk on the fourth down scramble, and after a tremendous toe-tap catch down the boundary by Freddie Swain, he had DK for a touchdown over the middle, but Robert Woods safely recovered the onside kick, and the Rams ran this down to the 2-minute warning. They did actually have a fourth down sneak stopped, but the game fittingly ended on a Morgan Fox sack as the Rams took down Russ 5 times on the day. LA's defense has created major issues for the Seahawks all season long, and in this game, the run game supported them enough to not allow Russ to break them with a couple of big plays late. Now the question for the Rams, heading to Green Bay, becomes how serious are these injuries to Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, as the latter came out hobbling on a meaningless play, blocking at the very end. The formula for them winning is clear, but the Packers certainly offer a more well-balanced offensive attack. And in the nightcap of Saturday's triple header, we saw the 11-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Washington where the football team won the NFC East at 7-9, as they were without their starting quarterback Alex Smith and had Taylor Heinicke making his first NFL start in a home playoff game. The Bucs came out with a good-looking drive into the red zone, which ended up in a field goal, as Leonard Fournette handled almost all of the running back workload early on, and we later found out that Ronald Jones was dealing with a quad contusion that was swelling up pre-game and he actually never played a single snap. Both offenses would follow up with 3 and outs, before Taylor Heinicke hit a wide-open Cam Sims getting lost on a corner route out of a bunch, only for linebacker Kevin Minter to come through on a blitz and tip a pass, which Sean Murphy-Bunting came up with a diving interception of. Tom Brady made 2 big throws the ensuing third downs, and then hitting a honey hole shot to Antonio Brown for a 36-yard touchdown, as Washington was running that invert cover 2 again, which I feel like veteran quarterbacks have really shredded all season long. Heinicke hit Logan Thomas for a big catch and run next, and then took off for a first down himself, after dipping underneath a rusher to get the offense into the red zone, and after he made another big time throw with pressure in his face to Steven Sims on third down. J.D. McKissick got into the end zone from 3 yards away on his first run of the night. The Bucs got a good 20 yards on the reverse toss to AB, and then Chris Godwin ran away from his man on a streak across the field for a 27-yard score, but by not being able to make up for the missed PAT on the first touchdown with a 2-point on this one, this actually stayed a 1-score game at 15-7. After quickly stopping the football team next, the Bucs got big yardage on a screen to Fournette, and then Braid on a cross-off play action, but a couple of passes into the end zone fell incomplete to set up a field goal, before both teams went 3 and out once more to send us to the break with Tampa Bay up 18-7. After a couple of underneath throws to Terry McLaurin to start the second half, Taylor Heinicke hit Logan Thomas on an out-and-up off-play action for about 30 yards to set up an easy field goal, even though they were lucky that a pass that went through Thomas's hands wasn't picked off on the prior third down over the middle. And after both teams went 3 and out next, the Bucs benefited from a silly rule where if a member of the punt team recovers and carries the ball into the end zone, it actually results in a touchback. Yet even though it felt like Tampa Bay would take control, moving the ball past midfield after this, DeRon Payne punched the ball out of Keyshawn Vaughn's hands as the rookie running back was going to the ground to set the football team up in a good situation, which a pass at the sideline of Cam Sims and a horse collar tackle put them inside the opposing 10 already, and then Heinicke made a Houdini-like play when he was all balled up inside the pocket and somehow found a way to escape to his left before diving for the pylon, even though a little tunnel screen to Logan Thomas was blown up on the 2-pointer to avoid a tight score. A couple of strikes over the middle from Brady to Mike Evans and Cameron Braid set up a Tampa field goal next, plus after forcing a 3 and out, they really started riding Fournette, who also capped off the drive with a 3-yard touchdown, even though before that, the third passing TD for Brady was taken off the board as Braid hit the ball off his face mask, which actually cost me a good player prop that looked like it was all locked up after Brady had already had 2 passing TDs through the first 20 minutes and then just didn't get a single one after that. However, Heinicke would answer with another big possession with ropes over the middle to Cam Sims and Terry McLaurin to go with a beautiful throw and catch on a corner route for a toe drag touchdown by Steven Sims from 11 yards away now. And while Brady beautifully dropped the pass into the bucket for Big Mike down the sideline, and Fournette helped him trim some clock, a huge sack by DeRon Payne off play action forced the Bucs to settle for a field goal and keep this a 1-possession difference, which Heinicke got Washington midfield once more. But Lavonte David, after years of being one of the most underappreciated defensive players in the league, came up with his first signature playoff moment on a big sack to force Heinicke to just throw one up for grabs on 4th and forever. It fell incomplete, and now the Bucs get a third shot at the division rivals in the Saints. Brady threw for 381 yards in this game and has now beaten 17 different teams in the playoffs. That's more than any other quarterback in NFL history has total playoff wins. That's just ridiculous. While the quarterback on the other side kind of became the star of the show, as Heinicke battled all night long and has made a case for sticking around in Washington when you listen to the coaches and players in that organization. Because they probably put themselves out of the quarterback market in the draft at least, because they ultimately ended up winning the division. And now we move on to Sunday, first up with the Baltimore Ravens at the Tennessee Titans. This has really become one of the better out-of-division rivalries in the league over the last calendar year, as the Titans upset the number 1 seeded Ravens in the Divisional Round in January, and then earlier this season came back from a double-digit deficit in Baltimore to go with Earl Thomas literally being turned into a lead blocker by Derrick Henry after making some comments earlier that week, and then some pregame action back in November when John Harbaugh got into it with Malcolm Butler and Mike Vrabel. The game started with 3 and outs for both sides, but after Marlon Humphrey stayed perfectly in phase on a fade route on the initial one, A.J. Brown made a late grab on the following 3rd down, and he also ended that second Tennessee possession with a touchdown versus Humphrey, where the corner right fielder was looking for a flag when Brown kind of armbarred him on a jump ball, putting Ryan Tannehill at a perfect 6 for 6 on that drive. And 2 snaps later, Lamar Jackson badly threw a deep corner route off play action to the inside for an easy interception by Malcolm Butler, before Anthony Ferguson got lost on a shallow crosser for a big run after catch to set up a field goal for Tennessee. As Baltimore did not allow Derrick Henry to get started early on, getting hands on him in the backfield routinely, which would become the biggest theme of the day. And it looked like the Ravens would go 3 and out yet again to end that first quarter, as the Titans got a corner untouched to Lamar on 3rd down, but he was able to avoid the rusher and threw a laser to Mark Andrews at the sideline, before perfectly dropping a ball into the bucket for Hollywood in a slot fade, even though a Brooks Reed sack on 3rd down forced him to settle for free. On the other side, a 3rd down sack by Derek Wolfe off of the late inside twist got the ball back for Baltimore, before on 3rd and long from midfield, Lamar finally broke loose as he took off up the middle for a 49-yard touchdown, tying the score at 10 with 2.5 minutes left in the first half, and with Jahad Ward knocking a pass back into the hands of Ryan Tannehill for a big loss, the Ravens got the ball back once more. But for a defense that only had 19 sacks during the regular season, Tennessee continued to do a great job of forcing Lamar to hold on to the ball by bracketing in the middle of the field, and they got 2 more sacks in the Ravens QB, sending us to the break all evened up. The Ravens put together their best drive of the day to start the second half, as all those option run plays and designs by Greg Roman started becoming too much for the Tennessee defense, and fullback Patrick Ricard caught 3 passes alone on that drive before J.K. Dobbins ran it in from 4 yards away. With Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey doing a much better job of switching their receivers, they were able to stop that next drive after they had gotten picked off on a couple of plays in the first half, but with Harold Landry stunting inside to stop Lamar on like an invert rear play, the Ravens went 3 and out next, before Tennessee finally moved the ball again by going play action off heavy personnel to go with a roughing the passer call to get them to 1st and goal, but at least the Ravens were able to hold them to a field goal. And while a couple of nice yards after catch plays on little flips to Marquise Brown set up a 52-yard field goal attempt for Baltimore, we saw a rare miss for Justin Tucker, while the Titans got another 1st down from A.J. Brown running through contact, and then Derrick Henry almost broke loose on a game-long 8-yard carry, but then Deshaun Elliott did a great job of racing up into the flats and separating Jonnu Smith from the ball with a big hit, which led to a decision that Mike Vrabel will definitely regret for a while, as he decided to punt with 10 minutes left rather than go for it on 4th and 2 from the opposing 40. I shared a funny tweet from CBS's Will Brinson on it actually, where he said that Mike Vrabel was willing to cut off his penis to win a Super Bowl, but wouldn't go for it there. Baltimore took a good 6 minutes off the clock next by pounding the ball inside, but had a pick called on what would have been a 4th and short conversion, forcing Justin Tucker to redeem himself from 51 yards away, which he of course did. And the Titans needed a 4th and inches sneak from Tannehill next from their own 30 to even get that drive started, and then on the play just beyond the 2-minute warning, Tannehill tried to hit Khalif Raymond up the seams off a switch release, which the receiver never looked for and fell down, leading to a Marcus Peters interception. Plus, while the Ravens defense got flagged for stomping on the Titans logo to get those guys back for what happened in the prior meeting, Lamar got around the right edge for pretty much a game-sealing 33-yard run, before Gus Edwards got the actual 1st down to give Lamar his first play of victory, and that finally kills the narrative around him that he can't get it done in the playoffs, because while the Titans did a great job of funneling him back to the inside and taking away the areas of the field that he likes to attack in the passing game, he made those 2 huge off-script plays on 3rd downs to tie the game heading into halftime, and then just didn't make any mistakes anymore. The Ravens truly controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, holding Derrick Henry to just 40 yards on the ground, with Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Derek Wolfe, Matt Judon, all those guys holding up their blocks, staying disciplined with cutbacks and all that kind of stuff. And while the Titans did get 4 sacks in the first half, that was more due to Lamar holding onto the ball too long, while they rushed for almost 250 yards themselves again, with Lamar accounting for more than half of those. However, I already checked the schedule, and while these 2 teams don't meet unfortunately during the 2021 regular season, I can't wait for a rematch in the playoffs potentially. The biggest margin of victory this weekend, and it could have definitely been bigger as well, was in the Chicago Bears and New Orleans Saints matchup, and this was a rematch of Week 8 of the regular season, when the Bears took the Saints to overtime thanks to some Nick Foles magic, but New Orleans ultimately won it on a field goal. In this one, the Bears had Mitch Trubisky back under center and were certainly at a disadvantage looking at the injury report, because while the Saints were missing their sack leader Trey Hendrickson, Chicago was without their Pro Bowl level linebacker Roquan Smith and two more important rookies in cornerback Jalen Johnson and an electric receiver in Darnell Mooney. Michael Thomas being back in the lineup for New Orleans made his presence felt early on, including a 10-yard touchdown to cap off the second drive on a spot route versus zone coverage, the first one all season long for last year's record-setting receiver. While after going 3 and out in the first chance, Jawan Wims made a great catch on a hesitation fade route for Chicago, but then on a deep post off a reverse pitch to Trubisky, who was lined up as a wideout in a wildcat formation that should have resulted in a long touchdown, Wims had it go right through his hands, which was the exact same pass Darnell Mooney made a big grab on last week versus Green Bay, and probably would have run that route if he was in the game. And then Mitch kind of willingly ran out of bounds on 4th down at the fringe of field goal range. But after a couple more catches for Deontay Harris, Drew Brees had a pass batted up in the air, and I was really surprised to see Duke Shelley's attempt at a diving interception overturned, only for Will Lutz to miss a 50-yard field goal moments later anyway. And after the Bears went 3 and out, Chicago got the turnover finally, as Travis Gibson strip sacked Taysom Hill, and John Jenkins caught it out of the air. However, that came at the last second, because Hill had Deontay Harris breaking free downfield for what would have been a long touchdown against zero coverage. But with that, the Bears finally got on the board with a field goal, and then we saw 3 more punts after that to send us to halftime with the Saints up 7-3. Chicago got into field goal range to start the second half, thanks to 2 nice catches by Allen Robinson, but a big sack by Sheldon Rankins pushed them back, and they had to punt ultimately. Plus, another one of their receivers punched Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and got disqualified for it, this time Anthony Miller. This has really become a phenomenon, because Gardner-Johnson has now been punished 3 times this season, twice by Bears receivers who got kicked out afterwards, and once by his own teammate, Michael Thomas, who didn't suit up for a game because of it. On the upcoming 3rd down for New Orleans, Brees hit Michael Thomas on a corner route for a big gain, and then got 2 key catches by Derek Cook, before they were able to draw one of the Bears' defensive linemen offside on 4th down, and then Brees just kind of flipped it to Latavius Murray whilst getting pressured, who actually had fallen down in the play after setting a block initially, but then dove into the end zone from 6 yards away. A tremendous fight after a short catch, and poor tackling by the Bears for little Jordan Humphrey to convert a 3rd and long, and then a couple of penalties in the end zone later on, allowed New Orleans to put together their longest drive of the season at just under 9 minutes, which Alvin Kamara finished off with a run from a couple of yards away to go up 21-3. And after the Saints had started wearing down the Bears' D with the run game to take this down to the 2-minute warning almost, a 4th down touchdown by Brees extending the ball at the goal line was reversed, and Chicago's offense put together one final effort that was finished off by an incredible one-handed snag for a touchdown by Jimmy Graham with no time left on the clock to give us a final result of 21-9, even though the refs let them get away with not kicking the PAT, which might have made some bettors very angry, since I think the final spread line was +11, and that's right where it would have ended up. Now the Saints get to host the division rivals in the Bucs, who they dominated in the 2020 series, and could get back defensive end Trey Hendrickson and left guard Nick Easton. Tampa Bay better not play as much soft zone as the Bears did, because forcing Brees to just beat them with underneath throws in the open areas, that's not a recipe for success. And then in the Sunday night game with the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Browns were back in the playoffs for the first time in 18 years, only they would have to go back to Pittsburgh, where the Steelers had bowled them over the entire stretch, not losing a single matchup at home, and COVID protocols would really hit them, not having head coach Kevin Stefanski, the 2 starting corners, and Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio. So they were facing a tough task, while Juju Smith-Schuster added some fuel to the fire by saying that the Browns is still the Browns early in the week. However, the game could not have started better for the Browns, as on the very first play of the game, Marquise Pouncey snapped the ball over the head of Ben Roethlisberger, and Carl Joseph recovered it in the end zone, and over the next 4 minutes, Nickelback MJ Stewart came up with an interception as the ball went off the hands of running back Benny Snell on a late dump-off, before Baker Mayfield hit Jarvis Landry on a slant route on the initial 3rd down, who made Terrell Edmonds miss badly and went 40 yards for a second touchdown. Plus, the Browns stuffed the second fullback dive on 3rd and short to get the ball right back, and then Nick Chubb broke a couple of big runs to get Cleveland back inside the opposing 30. and after a nice diving grab at the sideline by Rashad Higgins, Kareem Hunt powered through a couple of defenders for an 11-yard score. And this crazy start wasn't over yet, as Ben threw a dig route high over the middle to Deontay Johnson, and the ball ended up in the hands of safety shelter Greg Ryan behind him, who returned the interception all the way to the Pittsburgh 15. And 3 snaps later, Kareem Hunt got his second touchdown, making a couple of great cuts on a power run to go up to a shocking 28-0 lead after the first 13 minutes. And it took just beyond the 2-minute warning for the Steelers to get on the board, as Ben was picked off a third time, with Winston Taylor batting up a pass at the line and Porter Gustin making a diving grab on it, before they finally went 89 yards on a drive with a lot of underneath completions, and then James Conner picking up a 4th and 1 from the Cleveland 2, where Ben did a great job of still getting the handoff to his running back when the snap was already on the turf, and then Conner bounced outside for the final yard and the touchdown. Yet the Browns answered with a couple of dump-offs in the flats to Nick Chubb, before Baker hit a wide-open Austin Hooper for a 6-yard score on a corner route, where it certainly looked like they were playing a single high coverage, and the corner got locked in on the back rather than syncing with the tight end, who was lined up as a single receiver to that side. However, Pittsburgh at least was able to use the final half minute to set up a long field goal and cut this to a 25-point difference. Still a 4-possession difference though. But the Steelers really started fighting their way back in the third quarter as they put together 2 lengthy drives by chipping away with underneath completions, the first one being finished off by a 17-yard touchdown on a corner route to Eric Ebron, to go with a key 3rd and long conversion and a 5-yard touchdown on a crossing route by Juju on a 4th and goal, while the Browns answered with a couple of quick 3 and outs. However, after Pittsburgh surprisingly decided to punt on the 4th and 1 just short of midfield, Cleveland made this a 3-score difference again on a touchdown drive, starting with a 3rd down conversion to Jarvis Landry on a pivot route matched up against the linebacker, plus a nice run down the sideline after it, before Nick Chubb bounced off 2 defenders and went the final 40 yards on a screen pass. Yet only 4 snaps later, the Steelers were in the end zone again, with Juju wide open on a simple seam route versus the cover 2 that the Browns were running all night long, and then Chase Claypool scoring from 29 yards away in a post route. The Browns took a good 7 minutes off the clock and added another field goal in the next drive, with Baker continuing to go to Jarvis, and Big Ben missed Sione Takitaki underneath on a deep crosser, who high-punked the ball for another interception and set up one more field goal for Cleveland to finally secure the W with a 3-possession difference at just under 3 minutes left. Pittsburgh was able to cut this to 11 points with a late touchdown to Claypool and a comeback route to the front pylon, plus they got the 2-point and a little flick to James Conner. But Stephen Carlson did a much better job of attacking the ball in the onside kick attempt than it did a week ago when he had it squeezed in between his thighs at the end of their regular season finale against the Steelers a week ago that ultimately put the Browns in the playoffs. Ben Roethlisberger set an NFL record for any game with 47 completions for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he also tossed 4 interceptions that allowed the Browns to get up to that big lead early on. One guy I want to point out for Cleveland here, right guard Wyatt Teller was smashing the faces of defenders all night long in traps and kick-out blocks. The story to watch now is the injuries on the Cleveland offensive line, as they had 3 backups in the lineup in the 4th quarter, and if they want to have any chance of winning in Kansas City, they will have to control the pace of the game, otherwise Patrick Mahomes will shred that makeshift secondary over and over again. And with that, let's now preview the next round of the playoffs. First up on Saturday, we got the LA Rams at the Green Bay Packers, the number 1 ranked defense against the number 1 offense. You have the top corner in the game right now in Jalen Ramsey, going up against the best receiver in Davante Adams. The Rams have shown that they can win with serviceable quarterback play if they can just run the ball, because their defense has been phenomenal, and they will give Green Bay some issues, especially if they can make this a drop-back game for them offensively. However, I believe the Packers have really become a more balanced all-around offense that won't allow them to just come after Rodgers, the league MVP. So I think this will go into the 4th quarter potentially, and if LA makes a big play on special teams, I like their chances, because they can control the pace of the game against what still is a below-average run-stopping front 7 for Green Bay in my opinion. But if they are about even in that third area of the game, and Packers defensive coordinator Mike Patton doesn't get caught as a victim of his own tendencies, which has happened in the past going up against Kyle Shanahan, for example, who picked him apart, I think the Packers win at home just because they're so much more dynamic offensively, and they'll host the NFC Championship game, giving Aaron Rodgers a chance to finally advance to his 2nd Super Bowl and further cement his legacy. The injuries to Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp will certainly have to be monitored on the Rams side, But for the Packers, without an elite left tackle in David Bakhtiari, whoever rushes on his replacement could wreak some havoc. Then we got the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Man, I promise you the Bills were hoping that the Steelers would win that Sunday night game against the Browns and that they would get to face Pittsburgh again at their place. Baltimore is not a great matchup for them in any way. Much like the Packers, the Bills' biggest weakness is the interior run defense, even though a lot of the success against them in that area came without Matt Milano in the lineup. But for the Ravens, they can pound you on the inside like no other team with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Plus, when Lamar Jackson posts the ball and gets in the open field, he's the most dynamic runner in the league. Sean McDermott, I believe, will have the upper hand in terms of the drop-back pass game, because Greg Roman is pretty elementary in that aspect anyway. But if the Ravens run the ball as effectively as I believe they can, they will operate mostly off play action and create those one-on-ones anyway against zone coverage. When you flip those sides, Baltimore is one of the very few teams in the league that can at least match up about even against this group of receivers for the Bills, and they can potentially force some bad decisions by Josh Allen just because of how multiple they are in the pressure packages and the coverages they play behind it, forcing Allen to hold on to the ball. But individually, the Ravens don't have a lot of elite singular pass rushers against one of the top pass protecting offensive lines, so this is really tough for me to pick. I'm going to give the Ravens the upper hand at this very moment, but I'm going to see what the injury report looks like before I make a definite pick. So make sure to follow me on my social media, where I usually put those out a couple of hours before the game start. And then on Sunday, now kind of the Cinderella of these playoffs, and the Browns get to go to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, who are coming off a bye week and are looking to defend their title. We'll definitely see some pictures of that epic battle that Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes had in college, and the numbers that those two quarterbacks put up. But if Cleveland wants to have a chance in this game, they will have to run the ball effectively and then open up a few big play opportunities off it, rather than putting Baker Mayfield in the shotgun and trying to match Patrick Mahomes. That's not going to happen. And I could see them have some success in that area, while to me they might actually have the upper hand on both sides of the line here. But they just have to hope that they can get Denzel Ward and Kevin Johnson back to limit the damage that this incredible group of pass catchers can have for Kansas City. The Steelers receivers already gave them some trouble when Ben Roethlisberger didn't have his passes land in the hands of defenders off deflections, even though a lot of the success that they did have came against those prevent defenses. Cleveland played a ton of cover 2 in that game, and they will have to force Mahomes to throw it underneath rather than give him those chances to beat them over the top, because Kansas City will definitely win that battle. I see Travis Kelce having a monster game in this one, because he will work those seams and be matched up against those Cleveland linebackers who have struggled against tight ends for pretty much the entire year, while the Browns, on the other hand, don't have a lot of guys who can really threaten the Chiefs' back seven outside of Jarvis Landry, so they will have to open up those chances downfield with heavy play action and some of the double moves that they've been running off it. I'm going with the Chiefs no matter what, but if those injuries on the offensive line for Cleveland become a bigger issue, I like KC by double digits. And then finally, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints, another divisional rematch, as the Saints won the season opener by double digits when the Bucs were still coming together as a team, but then also put a beating on them on Sunday night back in Week 9 at Tampa Bay, where the Bucs only got on the board late with a meaningless field goal. The Bucs are definitely a different team now, opening up all areas of the field and getting everybody involved. But the Saints have improved as well, as that game at Tampa Bay really was a starting point for the dominant defensive run that they've been on, and if not for the Rams, they would be the best defensive unit left in the playoffs, while Drew Brees has really been getting back into a groove as well. I can guarantee you that the Bucs won't just run the ball 5 times in this game and roll over like they did. It'll be tough sledding, but they will have to stay patient with the run game and not allow the Saints D-line to just pin their ears back while having more answers against those different looks that defensive coordinator Dennis Allen will throw at them. Mike Evans might still be a little banged up, but I'd be shocked if Brady doesn't make it a mission for him to get more involved in that matchup against Marshawn Lattimore, while the battle between longtime veterans in Rob Gronkowski and Malcolm Jenkins should be fun to watch as well. New Orleans' run game will face the toughest test of the season against this beastly Tampa Bay front seven, but Sean Payton might make Taysom Hill a bigger part of the game plan after Taylor Heinicke's mobility already gave the Bucs some issues last Saturday night at Washington. The big story, of course, will be potentially the final matchup between these two legendary quarterbacks in Tom Brady and Drew Brees, but I don't think that matchup is necessarily close with how on fire Brady has been over the last 1.5 months or so. But I do believe that Todd Bowles will have to be cautious with how aggressive he is in this game, because we have seen quarterbacks be able to take advantage of this young Bucs secondary when they are put in man coverage. So this should be an amazing game that I just don't see being as one-sided as either one of the regular season meetings. And I picked the Bucs to make it out of the NFC, so I'm going to stick with them here and give them the slightest of edges. But this is really a contest affair for me. And with that, let's wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it if you could share it on social media or with a couple of friends of yours. Make sure to also check out my Instagram, Twitter, whatever, which I've linked down below, for more video breakdowns, my actual game picks later on in the week when all the information is out, and much more. Of course, I will be back next week, recapping the divisional round and previewing the conference championship games. Plus, I will have something additional come out, whether it's a more in-depth look at those matchups or my all-rookie team. Just stay tuned for that. So, until then, see you later. Peace.